Shirley Winter Show, live, local, topical, and relevant as we go into Friday. Don't forget, tomorrow, 12 noon, the Car Guys Show, 1 o'clock, Inside Georgia Real Estate with Deborah Morton. I co-host those shows, and they're great shows, so you don't want to miss those shows tomorrow at 12 and at 1. And then, of course, we go into the UGA pregame, and the game's at 7:30. Trying to find a place to watch the game tomorrow. It's going to be a great game, and I'm slowly but surely, Magic Mike. You know, it's one of those games you kind of want to watch at home. You know, I may go to Publix, get some hamburger meat, maybe turkey meat, and grill some turkey burgers. Maybe make some pigs in a blanket, you know, on a grill, and just settle in and watch the game to where I can hear the announcers, hear the commentary. Not have a lot going on around me, you know, so I'm excited about tomorrow's game. Go Dogs. And so I want to talk about Joanne Chesimard. Rest in peace. So let me say something to everybody, okay? There's a lot of talk right now. A documentary is coming out by Chad Jackson with Vince Ellison. About Martin Luther King being, you know, influenced by communists and Marxists, Stanley Levison being a major influence on Martin Luther King's life. And there's a lot of talk about, a lot of documentary coming out on that. Joanne Chesimard changed her name to Assata Shakur. She was started off with the Black Panther Party, and then she moved to the more, if you want to use the term, radical Black Liberation Army. And she was a fugitive. She was arrested for killing a police officer on the New Jersey Turnpike. She was put in jail. She served time in jail for 2 years, doing a court hearing. She was busted out of prison, and she fled to Cuba, where she lived in exile until she passed away yesterday. So a lot of people just see her as a cop killer, if you will. And the federal government has been trying to get her back here in the States to mete out justice, you know, for her to finish her life sentence that she received. You know, so there's a lot around that. I want to talk about something from a different point of view, and that's what I try and do here. One of the things that I found out about talk radio is that everything is just not black and white, red and blue, you know, whatever, you know, male, female, whatever. That's just not, it's not cut and dry, right? There's context to everything. And even with the Martin Luther King documentaries and tying him to the communist movement and tying him to a number of communists and Marxists around him and tying the Black Panther Party, which they admitted that they had communist leanings and Marxist leanings. You have to understand at that time, you know, we talk about men and women of their time, right? So we talk about the founding fathers, and we know that I'm just using this as an example, they were slaveholders. And we talk about them being slaveholders, and we say, well, they were men of their time, right? Well, these people in the 60s, during the Civil Rights Movement and during the more quote-unquote radicalized elements of the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, the anti-war movement, they became more radical. And that term you can loosely apply because the way they were being treated was, in fact, radical. And so it's understandable that these groups of people who were under the foot of the federal government, to the point where the FBI had a whole program to destabilize the Black Panther movement, the Black Liberation Army, the Civil Rights Movement, the anti-war movement. The FBI is the government. The government was infiltrating these groups to destabilize them. Because J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI and the domestic, I guess, law enforcement apparatus in this country saw them as an internal security threat. And part of the reason why they saw them as an internal security threat was because they were backed by the communist Russians. And so the FBI clearly saw them as a threat. They saw the government as a threat. And so it became what came first. Well, clearly, if you're African American in this country, what came first was the years of Jim Crow. What came first was the years of being locked into ghettos with no way of getting out. Starvation, poverty, all of these things. What came first was drafting African Americans that weren't seen as that were seen as second-class citizens into a war to go over to Vietnam, way above their numbers in population, way above their percent of the population, sent to Vietnam to fight in a war against communism. And so when you see it from that standpoint of view, you can actually understand why someone would say, this capitalism thing with the heavy-handed government, the deceptive government, with the corrupt government, this capitalism thing isn't working for me because of the color of my skin. I'm going to look over here, which is kind of preaching a kind of equal society. No, let's not go down a road of whether they're right or wrong, but I can understand if at that time you were seeking something else because that which where you lived did not work and wasn't working. Now, if you're a person, I just want to move it ahead to now. If you're a person now, and we're seeing the numbers with our young people, more and more young people see socialism as a positive thing. Now, I talk about this all the time, and I'll say it again. I don't think it's a positive thing, but they see it as a positive thing because what they're seeing right now doesn't seem to be working for everyone. And so they're saying, well, what's here now doesn't work, so let's try this. So if you're an African American in the 50s and 60s, coming out of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're saying to yourself, it's easy for the communists to come in, sit down, and say, hey, what about this? Everyone's treated equal. The government's, there's more and more government, and the government sees everyone as equal, and everyone gets their fair share. You're not treated as a second-class citizen. I can see where people, African Americans particularly, and movements across the African American freedom movement, if you will, can say, yeah, this sounds good. Doesn't make them bad people, doesn't make them stupid, just makes them saying, look, this is not working. Clearly it's not working. We're getting our heads bashed in a region of the country simply for wanting to vote. We're getting our heads and fire hoses shot on us simply for wanting to buy a burger at the Woolworth counter and not be told to go in the back to order the same food for the same price. We're going to boycott this bus because we made to get up for someone else who's paying the same fare as we are, and we're told to sit in the back. That doesn't seem fair. There's a white and a black water fountain. That doesn't seem... So you can understand why people at that time would be swayed by another ideology that talks more of fairness and equality of everyone. I move ahead to now. If you're a person that flies a Gadsden flag bumper sticker on your F-150, if you're a person who says, out of my cold dead hands, when you're talking about gun control, if you're a person that says you want freedom from a heavy-handed, increasingly superior government, if you're a person who likes free speech, if you're a person who thinks that it's a great thing to be able to have your freedoms not stepped on by the government, then that's all Joanne Chesimard, a.k.a. Assata Shakur, was fighting for. She would have flown the exact same Gadsden flag. Don't tread on me. Because that's what was going on at that time. Police in L.A. were heavy-handed with the community. Police in Newark and Harlem and places, big cities, they were heavy-handed. They rolled into places, smashed heads, and then asked questions. And they were proud to do that. And this went on. And people got fed up and they started to fight back. Don't tread on me. And I think that if we can see things like that, and get away from the hardcore right, left, right, black, white, and just see and kind of look at the nuance of things, we can get a better understanding of each other. And by getting a better understanding of each other, we can then start to see that we are not the enemies of each other. Because we're not. Calling someone that wears a red MAGA hat a Nazi and a white supremacist doesn't do anything for the dialogue. You know who it helps? It helps the people at the top who are taking advantage of the working class guy in the MAGA hat, and you, the working class African American, and you, the working class Hispanic, and you, the working class Asian. The only people that benefit from our division are the people at the top. Because if you pay close attention, every single time, you will see the people at the top all know each other. And they're all friends. And they love it when we at the bottom break things down to, she's a cop killer, she's a commie, he's a commie. Of course they were commies. They were being treated completely unfairly. They were being violently suppressed. At the time, of course, they were looking for another ideology that may not have treated them as bad. It makes total sense. Shelley went to show. We'll be right back.